behind every success, there is a story, right? That keeps us moving. And we sometimes call it principles, values, or just a basic foundation upon which we build our business and success eventually. And so in his case, one of his foundations was that he was constantly asking and challenging his thoughts. And today, we are going to invite you to this challenge too by asking, so do you ever care that what you believe, what you think, how you act is actually right? Or what if I tell you that even when you think you're right, you probably aren't? I will invite Jared to discuss this topic with me today. But first, I would like to keep my tradition to tell you a little story how I met Jared. So actually, it was really interesting and exciting because he approached me back in 2021, February 24th. I remember it by now. By asking to my help on behalf of leadership training platform that I am the founder for to expand into the Baltics. And so that is why we started cooperating with each other. And today we are here together to discuss these topics, success related topics, I would say, or leadership related topics. And I found Jared really nice, kind-hearted person who cares for people. So this is my impression of Jared, and I am very pleased to invite him on the virtual stage. And before, I'm really sorry I didn't say my name. My name is Gedre, and I'm the founder of Leadership Training Platform. So, Jared, welcome. And how to be right all the time? Please tell us.
Sounds good. Very easy. So first of all, of course, thank you for having me. It's good to be here. Good to talk about a subject that I'm very passionate about and I enjoy talking about. So it works out well. So yes, if you want to be right, or being right all the time, or as much as possible, starts with really one question: a commitment on your own behalf. So I would say there are two things to think about if you're deciding if you want to be right all the time, if that's important to you. The first thing to think about is if that is most important or if something else is more important. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was talking with a friend of mine who I knew from university. And back in university, we held pretty similar beliefs, in this case about religion. And since then, I changed my beliefs pretty drastically, and she didn't. So she is still religious. I'm not religious at all. And so I asked her, we were having a conversation, kind of comparing, contrasting, looking at the reasons we each had for what we believed and why. And I asked her, like, do you care if what you believe is true? And she replied and she said, no, not necessarily, because what she believes gives her hope, and that's most important to her. And that's entirely fine. All of us have the right to make the decision for ourselves, what is most important to us. And what we're going to talk about today is really uncomfortable. And I'll also explain why it's so uncomfortable. And it is entirely valid if somebody would prefer to have to prioritize hope in their beliefs or to prioritize comfort in their beliefs or something like that. It is entirely valid. Everybody has that choice. But it's still a question to ask before you start to get into the different tools and scientific ideas and philosophical ideas that we're going to talk about today. The second thing to think about, a second question, is whether you would rather be right today or tomorrow. Because if you would rather be right today, then you are going to find reasons why, like excuses for yourself, for your own behavior, for your own decisions, because what you're prioritizing is, I want to be right now. Whereas if you want to be right tomorrow, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong in this moment. And so I'll give you an example here as well.
Mhm.
So my assistant and I had a sales call earlier this week. And
Yes.
as part of this call, we were, well, I noticed at the end of the call that the person that we were talking to, his eyes were getting a little bit glazed by the end of the call and the end of some of my responses. And so I asked my assistant, like, did you see the same thing? And what did you think about the way I was selling to this person? And she told me what I was thinking, pretty similar to what I was thinking, that my answers were probably a little bit long. And a couple of them I didn't need to give because actually the person wasn't that interested in those particular points. And she agreed with my assessment that his eyes were a little bit glazed over by the end. So if what is important to me is being right now, I can say, no, what are you talking about? Of course not. He needed to hear that information. It was the right thing to do. It's if he doesn't care about the information I was giving him, that's his fault because he's bad at his job. He doesn't understand what his business needs. I understand it. I'm giving him the right information. There, I'm right in this moment. I feel good. I'm happy. But if what I care about is being right tomorrow, I can take that input and I can say, okay, yeah, maybe maybe I didn't do a good job on that sales call. Maybe I missed a couple points, and then I can correct them. And so when I have another sales call tomorrow, I can be better. And in that process,
Yes.
if I'm more concerned about excuses and the mental comfort of being right in this moment and feeling good about myself, that's what I'll prioritize. But if what I care about is being right in general or tomorrow in the long term, then I'll focus on looking for areas where I'm wrong today so that I can correct them and get better. And really, what we're going to be talking about today is how to get better at getting better. Exactly that.
Okay. In other words, maybe how to orient yourself towards growth, right? Over
Yeah,
your
absolutely.
daily decisions and actions. Um, People say, do you want to be right or you want to be happy? And
Mhm.
I just heard from your story that you said, oh, I would maybe if I took this short term decision to be right and happy. So I would like to provoke you a bit, maybe, and ask, do you think that being right is being happy?
It can be. So it feels good. So if you look at that point of view, then sure, absolutely. It feels good to say, yes, I was right about that. I'm amazing. I know everything. Good job, me. So it feels good to be proud of yourself like that. And on the contrary, it can feel bad or it can make you unhappy to be wrong because we make lots of mistakes. You open the wrong business, you meet the wrong person, you make the wrong decision. And that can be difficult. It can be really difficult to look yourself in the mirror and be like, I really screwed up there. That was the wrong thing to do. And that can make you unhappy about yourself. So from that point of view, yeah, sure, being happy and right can be the same thing, but
Mhm.
from a different perspective, the pursuit of being right can make you happy if you know that you have what you mentioned, that growth mindset, and in that case, even being wrong can make you happy because then you can think about being wrong as an opportunity to learn and be right in the future, and you can get excited about that, and that can make you happy as well. And if you look at it as an opportunity. So there are different ways to look at it and depends on what you mean by happy.
Okay, okay. I meant happy maybe more in general terms, right? I think when it comes to personal relationships, I hear that a lot. That
Mhm.
uh, even sometimes for me, Gadget, do you want to be right in the situation, or you want just to let it go and be happy? So maybe that's what I meant. But yeah, like you said, it can be very different perspectives based on this statement, right?
Sure.
Okay, so you said hope and comfort, and this is basically not not going for growth, right? If we're staying in comforting zone, and yeah, if we're staying in the comfort, are we growing? We're not growing. Or what do you think?
So this is similar to the question about happiness. You can
Mhm.
look at it in different ways. So if you teach yourself to get comfortable being uncomfortable, then that growth mindset can be comfortable for you.
That's
But
true.
I wouldn't say in general that that's the default way, and there's a really good reason for that. The way that our
Yes.
brains evolved is to be right enough to survive. So to be accurate enough, to have an accurate enough map of the world around us and reality to survive while using as few resources as possible. Because our
Mhm.
brain is a very expensive organ. It's the most expensive organ in our body in terms of energy. So you have to eat a lot just to keep your brain going. And in a world where there aren't a lot of resources, there isn't so much to eat. You don't want to be spending so much. And so if you can take shortcuts to make sure that you're right enough, so you know that the line is coming from that way or probably coming from that way, and you're right enough about that to have kids and survive and all of those things, evolutionarily, that's good enough. You don't need to be better than that. So if you spend a lot of time and energy and resources making sure painstakingly that you're right about everything, that you're analyzing each decision, each scenario, each situation, that is very expensive in terms of energy. And so our brain has developed a lot of shortcuts,
Mhm.
shortcuts to getting to an approximation of the truth, getting as close to the truth as we can without spending a lot of resources. We call those cognitive biases.
Okay. I came across this term. So could you please describe for our audience what is cognitive biases?
Sure. Yeah, cognitive biases are just the way that the shortcuts that the brain takes to assess the world around us. Since we don't have the energy to assess everything all the time on an ongoing basis, there are shortcuts we take. And there are
I
a lot
see.
of them. There are more than 180 of them.
Oh, wow. So interesting. Could you please name a few of them
Yeah, sure.
if you know?
Um, I do. A few of them I know. I don't know all 180 of them, but a
Yeah.
few.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
think perhaps the most common one, and one that a lot of people will have heard of, is confirmation bias. So confirmation bias
Mhm.
is when your brain only accounts for information that already agrees with you. So people also call it counting the hits and not counting the misses. So, for example,
Mhm.
if you decide that, let's say, pick any stereotype. This is easy with stereotypes. So if you decide, for example, that women are bad drivers, then when somebody cuts you off in traffic and you look over and see that that's a man, your brain doesn't even register it. It doesn't count as a data point in your brain's algorithm. But if a couple minutes later somebody else cuts you off and you look over and you see that it's a woman, so in other words, it's confirming what you already believed, that the
Yeah.
stereotype, then you think, yep, see, told you, women are bad drivers. And so the brain protects itself in that way, because if you take the energy to analyze, like, okay, I'm not going to take any shortcuts. I'm just going to look at every driver on their own. That's a lot of information to analyze, and our brain isn't good at that. And so it just takes this quick estimation. I have the feeling, I think all women are bad drivers. And then, yep, see, yep, see, yep, see. Okay, I was right. Cool. But that's not accurate a lot of the time. So stereotypes, of course, there's a reason that they are the case. They often have a kernel of truth to them because it's an approximation of reality, but they're pretty much always wrong to a degree, and they're often very wrong because they're only approximations of reality. So that's a one really good example. So if you find yourself focusing on or seeing information that confirms with you, that agrees with you, then you need to pause and think, wait a second, okay, am I only considering the points of data that agree with my position? Am I considering all the data if you want to be right? So
Yes.
that's one. Do you want me to plow
Uh,
through all the ones I want to talk about, or do you want to
I,
pause
I
there?
ju- yeah, I would like to just add mm, a question maybe to you.
Sure.
So while listening to you, I thought, okay, we don't have too much time to analyze every single
Yeah.
situation out of the comfort zone, right?
Yep.
So I think we are used to find these shortcuts
Yep.
because I think our brain is helping us out in this case to save time, to save
Yep.
energy, like you said, right?
Yep. Yep.
To survive. Um, so I guess it's not possible, right, to be always right, and
Hmm.
because we are designed that way, right? We
Hmm.
cannot analyze every single situation under, very very close under magnifier, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
well, the everybody has to make a decision for themselves, uh,
true.
where the line is going to be. So everything
Yeah,
on this side of the line is, I'm just going to go with instinct and my gut feeling over here. And I know maybe let's just pull a number out of the air. I'll be set right. I'll be right 70% of the time. Whatever. Just pretend.
yeah,
But that's good enough over here. It's not critical to my life, to my functioning, to my decision making, to my business, whatever it is. 70% good enough. But for this set or everything on this side of the line, decisions that I make, beliefs that I hold, this I'm going to analyze in more detail because it's more important to me to get above that 70% number. Here, I need to be right more often. So
yeah.
everybody sets their line somewhere. They don't do it by choice, really. It's also a gut feeling. And
Hmm.
so the that first question I asked, like the commitment you make to being right, is about that line. So do you push that line as far as you can over, so you get many, many more things in the data set that you're going to analyze in more depth?
Yeah.
Or are you going to leave it where it feels like, or even maybe push it a little bit to the other side so you can spend even less energy and less time? And that's an individual decision that everybody makes for themselves.
Amazing. So you're saying that there is a ceiling, basically, right? That we need to decide upon. What is how how much we can tolerate
Yeah.
being in comfort. How much we can outbalance that growth perspective, right?
Yes, the one qualifier that I would add there, though, is
Hmm.
that habits make things easier for the brain. So if you get into the
True.
habit of analyzing your confirmation bias and looking for that, like for the first period of time, it takes a lot of energy and it's difficult and uncomfortable. But
Yes.
if you add that as a discipline to your life and focus on doing that, after a while, it becomes second nature and you do it almost automatically. And at that point, it becomes much easier and takes much less energy and effort. So
Yes.
there is kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not all difficult, but it's still difficult.
Yes, that's a very good tip, actually, and advice. So to constantly look through our habits, right, and
Yeah,
to keep them and to always gain new ones, so we can grow
sure.
constantly and we can develop into more and more better versions of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. I've heard also about emotional attachments. Do you think they are somehow related to our comfort making, like decisions based on comfort making, or what do you
Y-
think?
Yeah, sure. So when you have an emotional attachment to a
Hmm.
belief
Hmm.
or a decision that you've made, this is also, it's called the sunk cost fallacy. What happens is it becomes very expensive for your brain to make a decision to change its mind there. And by expensive, I mean if we take an example, if I decide that my business, I've invested a ton of time and energy and money into my business, but some evidence comes up that says I need to change my mind. It's actually not working. I need to stop this business and maybe start something completely different.
Right.
The cost of making that decision isn't just, oh, okay, change my mind, the next thing. It's not like I was thinking about having pizza for dinner and now I'm changing my mind, I'm going to have a hamburger. What that means is that I have to admit to myself that I was wrong for a very long period of time. I wasted a lot of money. I wasted a lot of energy. I was proud of this project. I told people about it, and now I have to face them and feel like a little bit of a failure. I might have to. I have the knowledge that they might think I'm a bit of a failure. Um, I might need to have some more startup capital for the next project. I might need to move. There's so many, there's so much baggage that comes into that decision, um, that means that my brain, all things considered, will discount the data that is against my position. So the data that says I'm wrong, because it really doesn't want to go through all of that process, which is very natural. It makes sense why it doesn't want to. Or
Yeah.
if you have, let's say, a belief that is consistent with your community. Let's say you are liberal and you live in a very liberal community, and people who think like you go to parties with people like that, or you're conservative, or you go to your local church. You have whatever this belief is, that it gives you community, camaraderie. It gives you a sense of belonging and meaning and all of that. If somebody then comes up to you and even gives you a really good argument, like, actually, the conservative point of view is the right one, the liberal point of view is the right one, this religion is the wrong one, or religion itself is wrong, or you're in an atheist community and somebody gives you good evidence that this religion is the right one, then it's difficult because you have all of this baggage, everything that needs to change. Changing your mind means losing your community, losing your sense of belonging for a time. And that can be really, really difficult and scary for your brain. And so it usually discounts that information. So yeah, so that's something that is a really difficult aspect of decision making. But if you want to be right, you need to push through it. So yeah, it's a challenge for sure.
Yeah. I can hear that if we want to be over something, let's say wrong for a long time, we need
Mhm.
to accept ourselves, right? I can hear somehow acceptance behind this.
What do you mean?
Well, we need to accept that we have lost something, that we need to accept that
Hmm.
maybe what we have done for a long time, it was wrong, or
Hmm.
it's not working any longer. And from in my eyes and many people around me, I can see that, and I'm from Lithuania, maybe also it's some kind of history. I can see that accepting yourself the way you are,
Hmm.
it's very difficult. It's
It can be,
really
yeah.
challenging, yes. So maybe that
Hmm.
is why also people are emotionally attached to something, because it might be painful,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you resist, right?
Hmm. Yep, absolutely. It is very difficult because of that emotional baggage that comes along with it, for sure.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm hearing that we have this constant fight between between our brain and let's say heart,
Hmm.
or nurturing life. Um, but so we need to know ways how to fight it back, how to actually overcome that tendency to do everything, what is only comforting us
Can I
and
pause
pleasing
you?
us.
Can I pause
Mhm.
you there real quick? Before we
Yes.
move on to where you're going with that, I'd love to talk about two more things real quick
Yeah,
for
sure.
that cause
Go ahead.
problems in our brain before we look at the tools for how to get over that. So I'm
Perfect.
sorry to derail you, but very briefly. One
Sure, sure.
thing. one other thing that really fascinates me that changed a lot about the way that I think is a tendency of the brain. I was trying to look up before this call what this is called, but I couldn't find it. Don't remember what it is called. But our brain often assumes that it understands things. So if an expert is talking to us, a professor at university, somebody in a call like this, or your pastor, whoever it is that is an expert or one of the experts in your
Mhm,
life, when
mhm,
they are talking to you, your brain makes an assumption. It says, of course, this person knows what they're talking about. They know how to put it in an easy way. So, of course, I understand it. Or, and this is a really interesting one, if you put together a presentation and your PowerPoint is flawless, it is beautiful, it doesn't have a lot of information, it's easy to read, it has good graphics, so everything about it is exactly the way that we're told to do PowerPoint presentations. Your brain looks at that and says, oh, that's so easy to understand, so of course I understand it. But when it makes that assumption, it doesn't do the work of actually understanding it. So, if you've ever had a feeling, for example, at university, this happens very regularly. The professor gives you a lecture, and then you get home and you need to do the homework.
mhm,
And you look up and you're like, I have no idea how to do this. But why? Like I understood everything in class. I understood everything that the I followed the professor the whole way, but here it's like this is completely new to me the first time I'm seeing this. The
mhm.
reason why that happens is because you actually didn't understand in class. Your brain told you you understood, but you didn't. And so that's why you get to this point and you don't understand. This also happens even in conversations where you're listening to somebody and you know they're telling the story, of course, so it's easy to understand. I know this person, they're speaking my language, whatever. And so you realize at the end of it, like, yeah, of course I understand. And then they ask you a question about it. And you're like, uh, I don't know. But it feels crazy. You feel like you're crazy because you were just listening, like you were listening,
Yeah.
focusing to this person the whole time. And now it's
Mm,
like, I don't remember what you were talking about. The reason is because your brain makes this assumption. And this is so fascinating to me. It's why our teachers, I tell them, never ask your students if you understand, because your students will say they understand and they're not lying. They actually feel like they understood. That's the honest answer, but they didn't understand. And you can test that really easily. Whatever the concept was, you ask them to generate it, to produce something, a sentence in English in our case, or whatever it is. And many times they will do it wrong. And so you'll see from that that they didn't understand, even though they told you they did, and they were completely honest about that. And so this is really important. So when I'm speaking with people, people who talk with me a lot know that I do this. I interrupt a lot. So I'll say, wait, I'm sorry. Can you go back and say the last thing you said? Because what I've actually disciplined myself to do in my mind is I'm constantly going over what I'm hearing. So when somebody is speaking with me, I'm constantly reviewing it in my head to say, okay, yep, I know I actually did understand that. Yep, I actually did understand that too. And when I hit to a point where it's like, wait, oh, I don't know what they're talking about. Stop. I'm sorry. Can you go back? And so this is like at the beginning, it took a lot of effort on my side, but it's one of the habits that you make that I
okay.
talked about. And so this is something that you do when you're reading a book. Periodically pause, like, okay, do I actually know what the author is trying to say? Nope, don't understand. I'm going to go back and read it again. I'm listening to a podcast. I'm listening to a sermon in church. And whatever I'm listening to, did I actually understand it? Nope, don't understand. Going to go back, going to ask a question to make sure I can understand it.
Why do you
Um,
think we are so quick in saying that I understand? Why do you think we are so quick and fast in answering this question?
um, this one I'm not sure about actually, because it doesn't seem like it saves a lot of energy. Perhaps it does at some point. Um, but yeah, so I don't really know why this is. I just know that it is.
Mhm. Because I was assuming that maybe it is based on social fear, especially in the case with the students. They don't
Mhm.
want to show their vulnerability. that they don't understand, because some of them, like their classmates or colleagues can call them stupid, or so it's I think it can be also based on social fears, and maybe that is how our brain used to then work, very fast in saying, yeah, I understand, so to pretend that
It
you are
could
right.
be. It could be,
Yeah.
though, without discipline here, you actually you are completely convinced that you are right. If you took a lie detector test, or that you understood, if you took a lie detector test, you would pass because you actually think that you understood when you actually didn't. So it is, but it could be, that could be a part of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's
Oh,
maybe go with these tools.
mhm.
Can we explore these tools, as you said, because we're here to know and to hear, so how to be right most of the time, so we could grow.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are three tools that I want to talk about that you use in addition to what we've been talking about, is really just um, countering or understanding the biases in our brain and just accounting for them. But there are some
Mhm.
very specific tools that you can use to evaluate yourself and other people, the decisions, the thoughts, the beliefs, and to make sure that they represent reality as closely as possible. So I want to talk about three of them. These are all tools that are part of skepticism. Skepticism is a toolkit, a philosophical toolkit that is designed specifically to analyze beliefs and to make sure that they represent reality. So I wanted to talk about three. They're the null hypothesis, apportioning belief to the evidence, and falsifiability. So do you want me to just jump right in?
Yes, please. Yes.
Sounds good. Okay. So the first tool that I want to talk about is the null hypothesis. And the null hypothesis is basically that the default answer to any question is I don't know. So if somebody makes any statement, so I think that whatever, I think pizza is the best food. And so the default position for that is, the default response to that is I don't know. So do you agree or not? I don't know. I need to see evidence. If you can give me evidence that pizza is the best food, then I will agree with you. My answer will go from I don't know to I agree with you. So there's a very famous thought experiment with jelly beans. So let's say that I show you a jar of jelly beans, and I say there are an even number of jelly beans in this jar. Do you agree with me? Well, you don't have enough information. You can't agree with me. You don't know yes or no. You don't know. And I
I
say,
don't know.
okay, are there an odd number of jelly beans in this jar? And again, you don't know. You don't have a way to answer that question, even though we know that the answer is one of those two. So it's either even or odd. But still, if I say, do you believe that there are an even number of jelly beans here? You have to answer no, because you don't know.
Yeah. True.
So I'll give you another example from just regular life.
Yeah.
If I say something like, I just got a new haircut. Do you love my haircut? And you say, no. Say, so you hate it. Okay. And you can see what happened. I had two statements. If we separate them analytically, two statements. You love my haircut, my new haircut, and you hate my new haircut. And I assumed that when you said no to the first one, you meant yes to the second one. And then, so that again, if we go back to the jelly beans, is do you think there are an even number of jelly beans in the jar? And you say no. Aha. So you think there is an odd number. But no, your answer to that also is no.
Yeah.
So
True.
you can have we go with a positive statement and a negative statement. They're not together, they're separate. So the answer to one is yes, I agree with you, or no, I don't agree with you, I don't know. And the negative, yes, I agree with you, or no, I don't agree with you, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but could you please tell maybe a little bit more practical example from business life? For example, how how people usually interpret your, let's say, proposition?
Sure. Perhaps the best way to think about it is if somebody gives you a proposal,
Yeah,
and they want to I don't know, expand the business in Africa. And so they give you data on why you should expand the business in Africa.
yeah,
But you don't agree with that data. So it doesn't convince you. You don't find that data convincing.
yeah.
Your response to that question, then, do you think we should expand it to Africa, is no, I don't, because I don't agree with the data. So my answer is, should we expand it to Africa? I don't know, because I haven't seen good data one way or the other. You didn't give me data to show me that we shouldn't expand it to Africa. So the negative, we shouldn't expand it to Africa, is separate from the positive, we should expand it to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So if then the next person comes to me and they give me a presentation, and this presentation is, we shouldn't expand it to Africa. Here's the data. So I think that's terrible data. You didn't give me good data either. And so I disagree with that. So do you agree that we should not expand it to Africa? No, I don't, because I don't agree with your data. So what you're left with then is not yes, we should, or no, we shouldn't. You're left with I don't know, because you don't have data. The
Yeah.
positive data didn't convince you. The negative data didn't convince you. And
So nor
so
yes, neither no.
exactly. So it's always very important to remember that if you don't say yes, that doesn't mean you're saying no. Or if you
Yeah,
don't say no, it doesn't mean you're saying yes, because you need positive evidence for positive claims and you need negative evidence for negative claims.
true, true. That
Does that
happens
make
a lot in
sense?
business life, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does. It does. Because
Hmm.
people like the instinct, right? They can say, I don't know at first, or not
Hmm.
interested, or
Hmm. Hmm.
no, even.
Yeah.
And it's not always that it means no is no, or not interested is that it's not interested. Um, I like people saying, salespeople saying that when they say not interested, that means they're not interested now. But you
Hmm.
never know what happens in the future, right?
Yeah. So you haven't given them enough evidence
Yeah, exactly.
in that moment. Yep, for
They
sure.
don't trust you, for example, right? Right from the
Yeah.
beginning. Yeah,
Absolutely. And I can
yeah,
actually jump right into the next one because it's very related
yeah.
to that point.
Perfect.
So the second tool I want to talk about is apportioning belief to the evidence. So
Mhm.
if somebody gives you data for why you should move into Africa, for why you should expand into Africa, it could be
Yeah.
really, really amazing data. They could really convince you because all of the data is there. They looked at counterfactuals, they looked at data for, they looked at international sources, local sources, they whatever. They did the entire presentation. They looked at all the possible data, and all of it points very strongly in one direction. The reasonable thing to do there is to strongly agree with them. So you agree with them, so you follow the data, and your confidence in that decision is very high.
Hmm.
But they might give you information or data that is good. It points in that direction, but it's weak data. It's not. Perhaps they even did the whole scope of the research, but the data doesn't point strongly in this direction. It's not a slam dunk. Excuse me. So in that case, uh, what you do is you follow the data. So do you think we should expand into Africa? Yes, because that's the way the data points, but it points weakly. And so your confidence in that decision should also be weak. So the way I like to think about this is that there are some things where it would be very difficult to change my mind, and there are some things where it would be very easy to change my mind on. Um,
Hmm.
Gravity is real. It will be very difficult to change my mind about gravity. because I have lots and lots and lots of
Yeah.
evidence.
Yeah.
But I might think, for example, oh, what's a good example? I can't think of a good example, but there are many things in life where I agree with it weakly. Like I think probably that's true. Oh, here's a good example. So also from science, the Big Bang hypothesis. So I am not a cosmologist. I'm not a physicist. I haven't read all the
Mhm.
data, but as far as I know, most of the experts in the field follow this model. And so I'm going to agree with it. But because I just can't analyze the data, my agreement here is going to be pretty weak. So if the experts showed new data, something new came along, it would be very easy to get me to change my mind on this point that, okay, actually, this isn't the right model, this is the right model. Because I don't have a lot of data for myself, a lot of evidence, and therefore my confidence is weak on that point. And so this is in business or in the personal life, it's the same thing. So if somebody gives you data that you should absolutely go into Africa because it's a really big, all the data points strongly in that direction. You have high confidence. Maybe you bet the farm, you bet all your money, go hard into Africa. But then somebody gives you data, but it's kind of weak data. So you have low confidence in that decision. So maybe you hedge your bets. You don't put all your money on that. You give it a try. Don't spend a lot of time on it until you get more data. And then if your first effort works, then that's data that it's the right thing to do. And so you have a little bit more confidence and you add a little bit more to it. So it's really important to apportion your belief to the evidence, except one important thing, we never have 100% confidence in anything. And the reason for that is in philosophy, it's called the problem of hard solipsism. This means it is
What is that?
impossible. It's one of the most difficult problems in philosophy, and it has never been solved and most likely never will be solved.
Mhm.
It is impossible for me to prove that you exist. I can't show that you are not a figment of my imagination.
Oh my God.
The Mhm.
Going deep.
Yes, yes. And so there's something called the 5 minute universe. So it's possible that the universe, everything was created by aliens or by a deity or physics or whatever. It was created 5 minutes ago, but we were all created 5 minutes ago with memory from before 5 minutes ago. So that's possible. We can't
That's
prove that that was
possible.
wrong. Yes.
No.
And so if we can't prove that that wasn't the case, or we can't prove that we're not in a simulation, then we can't be 100% confident about anything. And so
Yeah,
the
that's
moment
true.
you're 100% confident is the moment you're weak. You know that you're being irrational. And so our confidence goes from 0 to maybe 99%. It never goes to 100%. So even gravity, you can convince me that gravity is an illusion, for example, or whatever it is. You can convince me, even though my confidence is very, very high. So you
Mhm.
can convince me about absolutely any position that I hold, anything. So that's also really important to remember. If you want to be right, all of the beliefs and ideas that you hold are provisional until more data comes along. All of them.
Good. Good to keep that
Mhm.
in mind, right?
Yes.
So to stay curious for more
Uh-huh.
facts and more evidence in your life all
Exactly.
the time, to be
Abs-
open.
yep. About every belief that you hold, no matter how strongly. I like
I guess,
to, yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
that
Go
I
ahead.
guess that's how innovation appears, right? Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
it's
If
like
you Mhm.
because I think innovation is a combination of something old that is working and something new that could add up the value. So I think this is it, right? This is the principle
Yeah.
that let's add up something
Hmm.
what could be valuable to
Yeah.
the old one, right?
Yeah.
It's not brand new, fresh new. It's not about reinventing the bike, but it's just adding up.
Hmm. Yeah. It is that a particular weakness where innovation is stifled, I think, is where people incorrectly apportion their evidence, their belief to the evidence. So the evidence,
True.
let's say theoretically, the evidence is only enough for 60% confidence, but they give it 95% confidence. Then there's actually a lot more, there's a larger margin for error than they think there is. And so
Yes,
they're
that's
stifling
true.
the curiosity that you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To stay realistic is a good thing. Okay, and the last tool.
The last tool, yes, the last tool is falsifiability.
Uh-huh.
So, what is falsifiability? Because this is a little bit, this is a little bit counterintuitive, actually.
Okay.
If we take the 5-minute universe, like I said, we
Oh,
can't prove that that's false because there's simply
yes.
no way to do it. And so, if there's no way to prove that it's false, that means there's also no way to prove that it's true. And therefore, we shouldn't believe it. But of
Yeah,
course, if we go back to the null hypothesis, what I mean by we don't believe it is we say, I don't know. So it's not that we believe the universe wasn't created 5 minutes ago, it's that we don't know. So we follow the null hypothesis in that case. So where I see falsifiability, actually, 1 second. So when you hold a belief, the important thing, the scientific method really, is to try to prove yourself wrong. So I am about 6 feet tall. How do I prove that wrong? Pretty easily. I get out a tape measure and I measure
yeah,
myself. Oh, I'm 5'11" or 6'1". Okay, I was wrong. So there's an easy way to falsify the belief that I am 6 feet tall.
yeah.
If you have a belief that it's impossible to falsify, like I think we live in a simulation, then you're being irrational. You should not hold that belief because there's no way to falsify it. Conspiracy theories are a really good example. So if I think that the government is out to, I don't know, chip everybody with the coronavirus vaccines,
Mhm.
and so I hold that belief. I think they're going to do that, or they're already doing that, or they already have. And somebody says, "Well, um, I don't, I don't have a chip in me." It's like, yeah, because the government is really good at hiding it. That's why. Okay, so I can't falsify that belief by scanning my body. Um, well, this is like who in the government is doing this? Oh, it's a super secret group hidden deep in the government. I don't know which entity or which government agency it is, but they're there. They're deep in the government. Okay, well, I can't prove that wrong because you're not saying it's this government, the agency. So I can't analyze them or talk to them or look at their data. So there's no way to falsify that. Um, so what changes in the behavior between a person that is chipped and not chipped? Oh, nothing changes. That's why they're just tracking you, but nothing changes. Okay, so you can't analyze the changes in the behavior. So there's no way to falsify this belief. And so this is very safe for the brain. That's why people hold these beliefs. And that's why they like unfalsifiable beliefs, because you can't prove me wrong, so I get to be right. But there's no reason to believe that unless you can falsify it. So
Yeah,
every belief that you hold, if you want to be right, you look for a way to prove yourself wrong. And if there's no way to prove yourself wrong, you have no reason to hold that belief. If you can if there is a way to prove yourself wrong and you try and you fail, then you have data, then you have evidence for your belief.
mhm.
That's a little bit philosophical or technical. Does that make sense?
So these tools, for me, sounds like they're interrelated. Am I
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Uh-huh.
How can you say like more an example from business life how are these tools can how these tools can affect our decisions, for example, in business life,
Yeah. So let's look at the very first one of the first.
interrelatedness of them. Mhm.
Yeah, sure. So let's look at that conversation I had uh with my assistant about
Yeah.
whether I'm a good salesperson. So we'll say, I have a belief that I am a good salesperson. The
Yes.
first thing I need to do is try to falsify it. So what would it look like if I'm wrong, if I'm a bad salesperson? Well, perhaps I wouldn't sign a lot of deals, or more precisely, I would sign fewer deals than a good salesperson. So on my team, the best salesperson converts 13% of their deals. I convert 6%. So okay, maybe I'm not a good salesperson. On the other hand, if I say that the people who don't agree to go with me, like this guy I was talking to on that call, it's his fault. He doesn't know what's good for him. Of course, I did the right thing. I gave him all the right information, but he was the one he's bad at his job. He doesn't understand. So I protected myself. I've made this belief unfalsifiable because if I get the deal, it's because I'm a good salesperson. If I don't get the deal, it's because the other guy did the wrong thing. He doesn't know how to do his job right. And so I protected
Yeah.
myself it's impossible to prove that wrong.
Yes.
So uh, if I hold that belief, and generally people who hold beliefs like that have a pretty high confidence. I think we've all met people with conspiracy theories where they're 100% sure in their unfalsifiable belief. So those often go together, not always, but often. So
Yeah.
if I haven't tried to prove myself wrong, if I haven't looked at data or analyzed whether I'm actually a good salesperson, I should have very low confidence in my belief that I am a good salesperson. Or I follow
That's true.
the null hypothesis and I start with a default of I don't know if I'm a good salesperson. I don't have data yet. And then you go from there. So, okay, how would I identify if I'm a good salesperson? Well, the number of deals I convert, or the size of my deals, perhaps.
Mhm.
Are they increasing over time? Am I getting better? Am I seeing the deals that have a higher ticket to them? Okay, so I'm at least better than I was before. So there's a little bit more data for me. So my confidence in this belief that I'm a good salesperson goes up. And if over time for 6 years straight, I'm the best person on my team, my numbers are I have the best, I'm hitting KPIs, they're all the best over my team. Um, I have really big ticket items. Um, Pick any other metric that you want to use for measuring a salesperson, whether a person is good at sales or not. All of them are through the roof. Then I have lots of data that support the belief that I'm a good salesperson. So my confidence in this belief can be very high. So I might get to 95%. Now, it's not 100% because we might find out that I was just in a really easy industry, or it's very easy to sell in this industry, or the people on my team are actually really bad. So the other ones are abnormally bad. So just because I'm better than them actually doesn't mean anything.
Mhm.
Or I don't know, you have some other advantage that is actually not about sales. And
Yeah.
so it's not never 100%, and you still continue to try to prove yourself wrong so that you can get better. But that
Mhm.
you start with, I don't know, the null hypothesis,
Yeah.
and then you look for ways to falsify your belief. And the more that you can't falsify it, the higher your confidence level grows.
Amazing. It's now it's really clear because yeah, you give this practical example
Sure.
that we should all keep a track, right, on our own progress in professional life, in even personal life, in finances,
Hmm.
right, in every
Yeah,
area of our lives. That's
for
great.
sure.
Okay, Jared, I think maybe our audience would like to ask some questions. You can shoot some on the chat. You're very welcome. I hope that this conversation inspired you. Um, at least it inspired me.
Can I talk
You
about,
know,
while people are
yeah,
asking or putting questions, if they are, can I talk about one last concept real quick?
yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, I wanted to
Cool.
ask you some question, but yes, please go ahead.
Oh, sure. So we all of this is very uncomfortable. It's
Yeah.
difficult to face the fact that you might be a terrible salesperson. Um, And
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm in this area. I mean, I'm
okay,
not a bad person, but yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It's difficult to face that, and it's difficult to the process that I just detailed for deciding actually if if you are warranted in your belief that you're a good salesperson. It's an intensive process, and it's uncomfortable because we have to face a lot of truths and go through a lot of difficult technical processes. Um, And so that's why I asked that question at the beginning. Many times, your brain doesn't like this. It starts to push back really hard, and that is called cognitive dissonance. So if you hold two beliefs that differ with each other, your brain kind of short circuits. I want to give one example of what this is.
Yeah.
Um, I had a conversation with my sister months ago, and we were talking. So my sister is very religious, and I am very not religious, and we were talking about marriage. And my sister was giving her thoughts about what marriage should look like, and she was coming from a religious point of view. And so I realized that I was really getting kind of frustrated in my head. I was getting this feeling of cognitive dissonance. And why was
Mm.
this happening? It
Mm.
was because
Okay.
uh, of course, she is wrong because she's coming from this religious point of view. Of course, she's wrong. But a lot of the things she was saying made sense. And so my brain was short circuiting because it was saying, like, wait, no, she's obviously wrong. She's definitely wrong. But she sounds right. And so that's a problem in the brain. And
Yeah.
so the reason why that cognitive dissonance was there was because of I was following that emotional baggage. I wanted this belief to be wrong because then it vindicated me.
Mm.
And it was a little bit scary because if she's right about this religious belief over here, what if she's right about all the other ones? And then what if that could mean that I'm wrong in my atheism? And so
Yeah.
my brain was like, whoa, 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 I don't like that idea. I invested a lot of time in my beliefs. And so it's important to keep an eye out for that. So what I've done in my own head is when I get that feeling, I know, okay, there's a cognitive bias here somewhere. I need to find it, get rid of it. Because
Mhm.
if you're passionate about finding the truth, you will never have that. I don't care what the truth is, even if it hurts me or if it goes against all of the cognitive biases I said, I want to get it. And then there will be no cognitive bias. You will be happy to get data, evidence, new ideas, wherever they come from, even if they're from people who completely disagree with you. Now I'm done.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Very interesting. We have actually one question from the audience.
Sure.
Should people in the same business, for example, co-workers, share the same opinion to make that business successful or to get on well at work, right?
Mhm.
I actually mean, should their rights slash truths be the same? It's a very good question. Thank you very
It
much,
is.
Bursala.
I want to answer it in two ways. One is that this comes to the topic of the next talk that I want to have. So partially, I don't want to answer it because this is more about personal responsibility. In a perfect world, so I'll give this short answer. In a
Yeah.
perfect world, it doesn't matter because we have all. I shouldn't say in a perfect world. In my perfect world, that's a better way to put it. In my
Mhm.
perfect world, everybody is completely committed to finding the truth, no matter how difficult, uncomfortable, or hopeless the truth is.
I
So that's
supposed to.
why I make the clarification. That's my perfect world, not
Yeah.
necessarily the
Yeah.
objectively perfect one. So in my perfect world, it's great because everybody on the team, they have different ideas and none of them care about being right today. So we can have the discussion and we can analyze the data together and we can all be right tomorrow, or we can still have disagreements and we can still uh, bump heads together and listen to new ideas and build our confidence levels. So in my perfect world, it doesn't matter. And it would be odd if everybody agrees.
Hmm.
Um, Another CEO might have a different idea. They might their perfect world might be focused on comfort, for example. They might have made that choice for their business, which is entirely valid. I want this to be a great, comfortable place to work where everybody feels good and everybody is happy. Okay, cool. In that case, maybe it's better. Maybe you only hire people that already agree with you, because then everybody will be happy and comfortable in their beliefs, and you're not going to challenge them because you don't want to, and that's okay. So it really depends on the goal. So next
I
time we'll
wanted to
talk.
say,
Yeah.
vision
So
or goal.
yep. So it goes
Yeah.
back to that, I would say.
Okay. Wussala, I hope that we answered your question. You can always add something if you would like to. Now we have a question from Jay. How would you go about encouraging employees to identify biases and implementing this sort of thinking as a team leader or employer? Sorry. Jay, is also a very good question, I think.
Yeah.
Really
This
good.
is, yeah. So this is, I would give, my answer here is an outflow of the answer I just gave, I would say. So if I, as a CEO, have identified, there are two factors to it, but this is one of them. So if I have identified for myself and my company that this is the way I want it to be, I want this to be a company where we pursue the right decisions, the truth, no matter the cost. So even if it's uncomfortable, even if we find out that we need to close the business, even if we find out that this employee is in the wrong role, it's the wrong employee for this company, or we're the wrong company for that employee, we want to know that. The first thing is I should hire people who match that belief. So I should, if I hire people who want to be comfortable and they don't want to pursue the truth, that's fine. But why am I hiring them? So I brought them into this company where I want to push them in one direction, and I know that they are not in that direction, that they don't want to do that. And so I would say that the first thing is that should inform hiring. The second thing I would say is leading by example. So if you
Very good.
show, so if you show that it is okay, that you have no problem being wrong, and anybody in the company can prove you're wrong, no matter the position. Again, we never have 100% confidence anywhere. So if you show that that is your belief, it makes it very much easier for other people. So if you lead the way in being wrong, it's easier for other people to follow you, because you're not saying, yes, I'm right about everything and you are wrong. That's
True.
difficult.
It's impossible, I think, even.
Yeah. The third part that I would say, and this is the other factor, what I'd like to talk about more on another occasion is boundaries and personal responsibility. So it's once somebody's on the team, as a CEO or as a manager, you have to identify what they're looking for. So you can have this conversation honestly with them, and it can be an ongoing conversation. Are you the person working for me? Are you comfortable with this no holds barred pursuit of being right? And I have to understand that they might not be. So if I understand that they're not okay with that, and they're already on the team, maybe I was a wrong hire or whatever the case may be, and then I expect them to act as though they are in with me, in the same boat as me in this pursuit of truth, I'm being unreasonable, because I know that they're not okay with that, and I am pretending that they are. So I think it's very important that you encourage people, that you talk with them, you have these conversations, but then you honestly look at what their position is. And you can't force them. People have a right to their own belief. So if you expect them to be something they're not, then that goes back to the biases in your head. So we'll talk about another time about personal responsibility and boundaries, which I think the sneak peek is that I think happiness is on the other side of personal responsibility. But for now, that's what I would say.
Perfect. Great answer. And I guess we'll look forward to your next session about personal boundaries. It's actually very interesting. Jay, those three make sense. Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Vussala. Okay, others, you're very welcome also to ask questions if you have some. What do you like doing when you feel very rested and, very safe?
So I think about this a little bit differently than
Yeah.
you, I think. So as you can tell, I'm very comfortable and I feel good about very intellectual, very technical pursuits and ideas.
Okay. Okay. This is
So
your cage.
sort of, I'm
In my
getting
world.
there.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first thing I thought of when you asked about that is listening to podcasts or reading books or watching YouTube videos from people who agree with me already. So it's when I can listen to the people and I can think, oh yes, cool, I made the right
Yeah.
choice. The data is there, the evidence is there, cool. All right, I'm right. Yes, I did put in the work and now I feel good. So that is it's I think you're asking a little bit of a different question, but that was the first thing that comes to mind for me. Now that can be dangerous, of
Nice.
course, because you can get caught in that cage, but that's where I feel comfortable.
Yeah, but that's good. That's good.
Hmm.
Okay. I think no more questions. Let me check. No, I think that's it.
Hmm.
All right. So, you know what, Jared, I would like to thank you for today. It was actually a very, I would say, valuable discussion. And we have covered many aspects, how our brain works. My insight, what I'm taking with me is that we need to take responsibility ourselves to challenge, right? To challenge our thoughts, to challenge our ways of doing things, and get rest, and then again get up on the track and nurture ourselves and our lives. So this is my insight, and thank you for that. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned for the upcoming episodes. Like Jared mentioned, it will be about personal boundaries, so we will announce that soon. And I wish you a very beautiful evening, and bye for now.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye bye.